right, here I am for my second conversation on cross purposes. So, where did I leave off? Oh, yes. So Jesus and his band of followers were entering Jerusalem from the east, and the mighty Roman emperor's procession was coming in from the west, and they are indeed at cross purposes, and some kind of collision is about to happen. But there are other situations happening too, where different agendas, different ways of seeing things have other people at cross purposes as well. So the passage that I'm thinking about now is Mark chapter 11, verses 15 to 18. And in this passage, this is where Jesus overturns the tables in the temple. And I'm just going to read a little bit. Quote, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations'? But you have made it a den of thieves." The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. End of quote. So obviously something is at cross purposes here. The common folk are coming to the temple as required. They're buying temple money in order to buy the pigeons or the doves or something else to sacrifice to God. And we find an angry Jesus. So the common folk think they're doing the common folk think they're doing what is required of them. And the merchants are just providing the means by which the temple sacrifices can be paid for. So what is making Jesus so angry, and what are the cross purposes here? Some think that Jesus didn't like the business that was going on, this trading of money. But actually the need to trade money was that the Roman currency had a graven image on it. In other words, it had a picture of the emperor. And that was not acceptable in Jewish practice. So one had to trade in the Roman currency for Jewish shekel. So really, that seemed to be actually following the rules. No graven images, so we trade money and we buy this shekel. So what is the problem? Maybe the problem is that it's the whole picture of the rule thing, the concept that you actually need to sacrifice to God at all. So perhaps it's not the money lenders that he's really mad at. Perhaps the religious requirements of the temple, which indeed ended up being a moneymaker, were at cross purposes with what Jesus was teaching about God. As Jesus turned over tables, it might not be simply because he was angry at those money traders. Perhaps he was angry at the whole business model that the temple priests had set up for people to follow. Jesus might be yelling, really, God requires none of this. None of this. Do you understand? You don't have to be doing this in the house of God. As Jesus turned over the tables, it might not be simply because he was angry at the money traders. He was probably just angry that the temple priests were teaching that this sacrificing was what God required. I do believe Jesus was at cross purposes with the temple priests. He may have been intent on seeing all of these temple practices abolished, which they wouldn't have appreciated. And we hear this quote, "The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him." You can see that these people are at cross purposes, and there might be a collision ahead. Thanks.